The city was waking up in slow motion, gold bleeding over wet pavement. Under an awning on 7th Street, Jamal sat in a thin blanket, fingers tracing the frayed edge. He smelled of old rain and coffee, and his eyes, bright and careful, tracked every passing face. People hurried past, earbuds in, lives pulled tight like coats against the morning. A leather wallet lay beside Jamal, left by a commuter who had dashed into a cafe. Jamal watched it for a long moment. The wallet's leather was cracked, the clasp was loose, and a single photograph was peeking from a folded receipt. He picked it up with a tenderness that surprised him, fingers brushing the image of a laughing boy, and felt something shift inside. It was a small object, ordinary and heavy with someone else's life, but in that weight, he recognized a crossroads. For years, survival had taught Jamal to make hard choices, to trade little things for warmth or a meal, and to keep promises only to himself. Today, the question was simple and terrible at once. Keep it, sell it, or return it to the person who must be frantic without it. He remembered his mother's voice, soft, insistent, telling him that a good person was a quiet thing, revealed by small acts. The morning around him hummed with indifference, yet the memory felt louder than the city. Jamal rose slowly, folding the blanket, tucking the wallet into the inside of his coat as if protecting a secret. He stepped into the flow of people, heartbeat loud, and decided to follow the wallet's story wherever it might lead him. The streets of downtown Los Angeles were a maze of noise and neon, a place where people's lives brushed past each other without ever touching. For Jamal, every corner held both memory and hunger. He'd once known these blocks differently, when he had an apartment, a steady job, and laughter that reached his eyes. That was before a series of small misfortunes stacked like falling dominoes. A layoff, a late rat notice, then the illness that took his mother, the last person who believed he'd make it back on his feet. Now, every step he took with that wallet pressed against his chest carried an ache that wasn't just about poverty. It was about identity. Somewhere along the way, Jamal had become invisible. People saw the beard, the ragged jacket, and the cardboard sign sometimes resting beside him, but not the man beneath it. He stopped outside a diner, drawn by the warmth spilling through the glass. His reflection in the window startled him, eyes too tired for his 35 years. Inside, people laughed over pancakes, the smell of butter and syrup twisting in his gut. He could almost hear his stomach echo against the window pane. He could easily sell the wallet. There were cash exchange spots near Skid Row where no one asked questions. It might buy him a week's worth of meals, maybe a clean shirt, a place to shower. The thought burned bright and ugly, tempting him. His hand brushed the outline of the wallet again, and guilt throbbed beneath his ribs. He walked into the diner, heart hammering. The waitress, a woman with silver hoop earrings and a voice as warm as cinnamon, looked him over but didn't chase him out. "Coffee's $2.50, she said gently. "I just need to ask if anyone's been looking for this," he murmured, placing the wallet on the counter like an offering. The waitress frowned, carefully flipping it open. Inside were credit cards, an ID, and about $200 in cash. "This belongs to a man named Daniel Pierce. He's in finance, it looks like." Jamal's eyes fell to the family photo again. The boy with the missing front tooth, the woman beside him, and the man in the middle smiling like everything in the world made sense. For a long moment, Jamal couldn't speak. The waitress studied him. "You found it and soaked it, and fingers were soaked and fingers were?" He nodded. "On the street. Thought I should bring it somewhere." "You could have just taken the cash, you know." Her voice wasn't accusing, just surprised. "Yeah," he said softly. "I know." She gave him a nod of quiet respect. "Tell you what, coffee's on the house." As the warmth of the mug seeped into his hands, something in Jamal eased. Still, when she handed the wallet back, it felt heavier. How would he find Daniel Pierce in a city of millions? He turned the ID over and scanned the address. Beverly Hills. A place so far removed from his world, it might as well have been a different planet. He thought about bus fare. He didn't have it. Walking would take hours. That night, Jamal sat beneath a bridge, cold pressing through his coat. He held the wallet against his chest and whispered to the dark, "What would Mom say?" The answer came in memory. Do the right thing, even when no one's watching. It wasn't easy to hear those words anymore. The city hummed above him, cars, laughter, lives moving forward while his stayed paused. But something inside him sparked. Tomorrow, he'd start walking, not because anyone would thank him, but because some part of him still believed there was goodness left to find. He fell asleep holding the wallet, unaware that this single decision, this fragile choice between right and wrong, was about to rewrite the story of his life.
The first light of dawn crept through the cracks of the overpass as Jamal stirred awake. The night had been long, the city unkind, but his decision was firm. He tucked the wallet deeper into his coat, stood up, and began the long walk west. The skyline shimmered like a promise he wasn't sure he could trust. He moved through neighborhoods that shifted from cracked sidewalks to clean storefronts, from the scent of street tacos to perfume drifting from boutiques. Each block told a story of distance, not just in wealth, but in understanding. Strangers glanced at him, some with pity, some with discomfort, as if his existence was an unwelcome reminder of how fragile comfort really was. By noon, his legs ached, his stomach grumbled with the steady rhythm of a drum. He stopped at a park to rest, sitting near a fountain where a group of kids chased pigeons. One of them, a small girl with curly hair, ran too close to the water and slipped. Her mother gasped, rushing over, but Jamal was already there, steadying the child before she fell in. The mother thanked him, smiling through her fear. For a fleeting second, Jamal felt human again. He continued walking, the sun sharp on his back. He passed a cafe, its window display full of pastries glistening with sugar. He almost kept walking, but a sign in the corner caught his eye. Help wanted. He hesitated. His clothes were worn, his beard uneven. But what if? He stepped inside, the bell chiming softly. The owner, a man in his 50s, with laugh lines deep as scars, looked up. "Can I help you?" Jamal swallowed. "Do you still need help?" The man's eyes lingered on him, scanning the worn jacket, the tired posture. "You ever worked in a cafe?" "A long time ago, before—" He trailed off, unsure how to finish. The owner studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "You look like you could use a chance. Wash dishes, clear tables. It's not much, but it's honest." A small, incredulous laugh escaped Jamal. "I can do honest." "Name's Pete," the man said, extending a flour-dusted hand. "Jamal." That afternoon, Jamal worked quietly in the back of the cafe, scrubbing pans and stacking plates. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, and for the first time in years, he felt anchored to something. Pete didn't ask questions. He just nodded at the end of the day and handed Jamal a sandwich wrapped in foil. "See you tomorrow if you want the job." Jamal thanked him and stepped outside. As he unwrapped the sandwich, a soft laugh bubbled up, half disbelief, half relief. The wallet still sat safely in his coat. Tomorrow, after work, he'd find a way to return it. But fate had a way of testing good intentions. When Jamal checked the ID again that night, he realized Daniel Pierce's address wasn't a house. It was an office. And that office sat inside one of the tallest glass towers in the city, guarded by security and polished floors where people like Jamal were never meant to walk. Still, he smiled faintly to himself, whispering, "Guess we'll find out." Then he folded his blanket, laid his head down, and dreamed, for the first time in years, of light instead of loss.
The next morning arrived, wrapped in a fog that softened even the city's sharp edges. Jamal buttoned his coat, tucked the wallet safely against his chest, and made his way downtown. His steps were slower today, but they carried a kind of purpose that hunger or exhaustion couldn't touch. He had already finished a few hours at Pete's Cafe, earning his first honest wage in years. It wasn't much, but it was enough for bus fare and a little spark of dignity. He clutched the folded bus ticket in one hand and smiled as the doors hissed open. The driver barely glanced at him, and Jamal slipped into a seat by the window. Buildings blurred past, the scenery transforming from cracked walls and graffiti to glass towers reflecting the morning sun. The closer he got to Daniel Pierce's address, the more surreal it felt, like walking into someone else's dream. When he stepped off the bus, the plaza before him gleamed with marble and chrome. Men in suits moved briskly, women balanced lattes and phones, and not a single person looked lost. Jamal hesitated, then pulled open the glass doors. A rush of cool air hit him, scented faintly with polished floors and perfume. The receptionist looked up, blinking at the sight of a man whose clothes told a story different from anyone else's in that lobby. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked politely, though her tone carried a flicker of caution. "I'm looking for Daniel Pierce," Jamal said softly. "I found his wallet." Her eyes widened slightly, then softened. "One moment." She made a call, whispering into her headset. After a pause, she nodded. "He'll be right down." Minutes later, a man in his 40s appeared, in a crisp suit, with tired eyes and the same smile from the photograph, but dimmed by worry. When he saw the wallet in his hand, relief washed over his face. "Oh my God," Daniel breathed, taking it gently. "I thought it was gone forever. I had everything in here. Cards, IDs, my kid's photo." "I know," Jamal said with a faint smile. "That's why I came." He blinked, looking closer at him now. "You walked all this way to return it?" "Yeah," Jamal said simply. "Seemed like the right thing to do." He slipped out a few bills from his pocket. "Please, take this. It's the least I can do." Jamal shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just take better care next time." For a moment, Daniel said nothing. Then he reached into his jacket, pulling out a business card. "At least let me buy you lunch, or if you ever need work, come find me. People like you, honest people, are hard to find." Jamal took the card slowly, a lump rising in his throat. When he stepped back out into the sunlight, the city didn't look quite so cold anymore. In his pocket, the card felt warm, like a promise that maybe, just maybe, kindness still had a place in the world.
The days that followed felt different, lighter somehow. Jamal kept showing up at Pete's Cafe each morning, his hands steady, his spirit slowly stitching itself back together. The world hadn't changed overnight, but inside him, something had shifted permanently. A week after returning the wallet, Pete walked in holding a folded newspaper. "Hey, Jamal," he said with a grin, "you made the news." Jamal froze. "What do you mean?" Pete turned the paper around. There it was, his photograph, grainy but clear. The headline read, "Homeless man walks miles to return lost wallet. Owner pays it forward." Beneath it was a picture of Daniel Pierce standing in front of his office, smiling for the camera. The article told the whole story, how Daniel had been deeply moved, how he had launched a community drive to help people experiencing homelessness find work, how he partnered with a few local businesses, including Pete's Cafe. Jamal stared at the paper, words blurring for a moment. He actually did it. "Seems like he meant what he said," Pete replied, clapping his shoulder. "Guess you inspired him." By the following week, volunteers began visiting the cafe, offering clean clothes, resumes, and job training to anyone in need. Jamal helped wherever he could, guiding people who'd been in his shoes, listening more than he spoke. It wasn't charity, it was connection. One afternoon, as the cafe buzzed with laughter and clinking cups, Daniel himself walked through the door. He spotted Jamal behind the counter and smiled wide. "I told you I owed you one. You've been the talk of the city." Jamal chuckled softly. "I didn't do it for that." "I know. That's what makes it powerful." They sat for coffee, two men from opposite worlds sharing quiet gratitude. No grand speeches, no cameras, just a simple exchange of understanding that life's worth was measured not by what you had, but by what you gave back. That evening, Jamal stood outside watching the sunset bleed gold over the cafe's windows. The same city that had once turned its back on him now felt alive with possibility. He exhaled slowly, feeling peace for the first time in years. The wallet had been returned, but what he had truly found was something far rarer: his own place in the world again. Sometimes it's the smallest actions that echo the loudest in the heart.
The sun slipped behind the skyline, painting the cafe in warm amber light. Inside, Jamal wiped down the last table, a quiet smile resting on his face. His story had started with nothing more than a lost wallet, but it had grown into something that reached far beyond one good deed. Every person who heard it began to look a little closer at the faces they once ignored. Every small act of honesty became a spark for something bigger. And maybe that's what humanity is really about. Not grand gestures, but the courage to care when no one's watching. If Jamal's story touched you, take a moment to share it. Let it remind the world that compassion still exists, even in the most unexpected places. Like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to join more stories that restore faith in humanity. Because the more kindness we spread, the stronger it grows. After all, one selfless act can ripple farther than we ever imagine. Sometimes it only takes one person to make the world feel human again.